Just before I go let everybody in?
All good. Thanks, Coach.
Okay. All righty, here we go. Okay, so first off, just want to let everybody know I would like to have everybody that's in the meeting, please mute yourself other than maybe the presenters. If we can mute ourselves, that makes things go smoothly, we'll make sure that everybody can hear what's going on, what's being presented. So without further ado, I'm going to get started and introduce tonight's session. Thank you for attending the PUSD College and Career Showcase. My name is Jamal Felton. I work at Rancho Bernardo High School here in the Powell Unified School District, and I will be your room host / moderator. We ask that attendees keep themselves muted unless asked otherwise during the presentation, but feel free to use the chat to ask questions during the session. There will be time to speak to the presenter at the end of the presentation. As a reminder, this session is being recorded. And now I am happy to introduce to you, first we have Jim Bonner. Oops, excuse me, if we could mute ourselves, there we go. First, we have Jim Bonner, Associate Director, Student Services, Undergraduate Admissions at University of San Diego. Next up, we have Chandra Bird, Assistant Director of Admissions, University of Pacific. Next, we have Darshana Patel, an alumni of Occidental College. And last but not least, we have Osmo Fuentes, from the Director of Admissions at Whittier College. So, having introduced our panelists, I will now, I'll push it off to Chandra, I guess, to start off, and we'll get going.
Thank you, Coach. Well, again, what I'll do is we'll go ahead and I'll share my screen now so that we can get that visual going. And hopefully, if you guys can give me a thumbs up, are we good with being able to see the presentation? Perfect. So tonight, okay. So tonight, me and my colleagues here, we're going to be presenting on the common myths and misconceptions about private colleges and university. Coach already introduced us, but again, just to reiterate, again, my name is Chandra Bird. I am the Assistant Director of Admissions for University of Pacific. Again, we have Jim Bonner, who will be presenting with us as well, Associate Director of Admissions, University of San Diego, Osmo Fuentes, Director of Admission for Whittier College, and Darshana Patel, who will be presenting for Occidental College. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started and go through our presentation. So just to kind of break down some of the common myths and misconceptions we hear regularly pertaining to private colleges and universities. They're too expensive, they're too hard to get accepted to, they don't have a lot of student diversity. Actually, this equates to access, and we will break all of these misconceptions down for you. Additionally, we hear comments like they're too small, they only offer limited academic choices and few opportunities for research, as well as it's harder to get a good job if you go to a private college because many companies don't know about them. So again, we will go through each one of these subjects and explain to you why these are incorrect and why they are misconceptions. The first one I will discuss with you, and that is they're too expensive. That is what I can say I hear more often than anything else. Contrary to a lot of people's understanding of private colleges and universities, California private colleges alone provide over $2 billion in institutional aid to students annually. And when you look at that in comparison to your state schools, it's going to be significantly lower. And a lot of that is because they don't have the same access or resources. Over $23,000 on average of institutional grade grant aid is actually provided by private colleges and universities per Cal Grant students. Excuse me, today for some reason I'm having issues getting words out. And in addition to that, on average of for $2 of institutional money, in comparison to $1 of Cal Grant money that is provided. So what this breaks down in simple terms is the affordability of private colleges. I have a small chart here. When we refer to institutional aid, that is referencing funds that are provided by the actual college itself, whether it be in grants or scholarships. So as you see in this chart I've shared on the screen, as far as private colleges here in California, provide about 70% in institutional aid. And then in addition to that, students are receiving, about 31% of students are receiving Pell Grant and 18% are receiving Cal Grant funds. Here's another graph that will hopefully bring a lot of this into understanding. Time is money. And when you look at graduation rate, on-time graduation rate from private schools in comparison to your CSUs and your UCs here in California, as you can see on this chart, it is a significant difference. Whereas our students are graduating on time, and there's several different factors that go into that. But the longer you're in school, obviously, the more it's going to cost. So there is a significant difference when you compare private schools, private universities, on-time graduation rates to your state universities and colleges rates. A couple of resources that I wanted to mention, financial aid sources, if you will. One being institutional scholarships, which can be merit scholarships, also departmental scholarships. It is definitely recommended that you connect with any school that you are considering or you have applied to really get an understanding of what resources they have and how it works as far as their scholarships, grants, things like that. In addition to that, you do have federal funding, which you would apply for by completing a FAFSA, which did open up October 1. So if you haven't done that, please go out and do that. By doing a FAFSA, you are applying for your Pell Grant, your SEOG grants, your Cal grants. In addition to that, you also have resources through the CA DREAM Act. And another form of financial aid or another source of financial aid is work study, as well as campus jobs. So with that, I will step aside and let my next peer go ahead and take over.
Thank you very much, Chandra. Again, my name is Osmo Fuentes, Director of Admissions for Whittier College. So again, the entire purpose of this conversation is to debunk all of these myths, misconceptions that surround private colleges and universities, not only across the state, but nationwide. And, as Chandra just kind of gave us a synopsis, one of these particular myths that typically surrounds these type of institutions is that, they are too difficult to be accepted to. But what exactly does that mean? It should be noted when we think about selectivity, when we think about the admission process, a majority of the private institutions, it should be noted that a majority of these schools across the state, across the US, in fact, do go on and admit a majority of the applications that they receive every single year. So again, as we move forward through the admission, we move forward through our college search process, we should keep that in the back of our heads. The fact that the odds are indeed in our favor. It's only a very small fraction of institutions, roughly speaking, according to the US World Report, about 150 institutions nationwide that will go on and admit fewer than 50%. So again, majority of private colleges and universities across the US will in fact admit a majority of their applicants. Now, a few things that we wanted to go ahead and share with you folks this afternoon, or this evening, I should say, is, how do we go on and kind of improve the odds of becoming a standout throughout the admission process? And here are just a few tips that we have for you folks tonight. When diving into the admission process, my friends, it is highly recommended for us to go on and take our time. Let's make sure that we're providing ourselves ample amount of time to not fill out the application for admission, but to also collect the supplemental material that goes with the application. It is very common for an application to request letters of recommendation, personal statements, obviously collecting official transcripts from your guidance counselors, requesting test scores. So there is an entire process when it comes to the application process. So for that particular fact, we do encourage you to give ample amount of time. I know that we're living in a generation where we have sort of like a dual identity with the multiple different online platforms that are out there, whether you are on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever the deal may be. Make sure that your presence is well kept. And what I mean by that is that oftentimes I do understand, I acknowledge the fact that we want to go ahead and have a good time and we goof off with our friends and we'll post silly videos or silly pictures, but we are living in a world where a majority of the colleges and universities across the US also have online platforms. So if you are following us on any one of these particular platforms, chances are that we are also following you. You're posting, inappropriate things, those kind of things will kind of sort of go against. Manage your online presence as you're diving into the admission process. Also, get to know your local admission representative. I cannot stress how important that particular point is. Individuals like Chandra, like myself, like all of our colleagues that are here this night, we are all designated a specific a specific set of schools that we work with. So if you know who your admission representatives is to the institution that you're applying to, we do recommend for you to go on, shoot us an email, give us a call. Believe me, those kind of things do make a huge difference because it definitely demonstrates that there is a significant amount of interest on your behalf in learning more about our institution. And when it comes down to actually reading the application, these kind of things, do not get forgotten. Lastly, we also would like to say that, as we're slowly exiting the COVID, nightmare that we all dealt with last year, more and more colleges and universities are returning to sort of like the traditional functioning schedule with, providing on-campus tours. So, we encourage you to take advantage of, any college tour that you may be available to visit. Obviously, with COVID, we were able to master the virtual opportunities. So I would say that a majority of schools are out there are providing virtual opportunities to either jump like on a virtual tour, a virtual information session. Oftentimes virtual interviews are also offered as well. So any sort of virtual offering, go ahead, sign up for it. It doesn't hurt to learn more about the institution. And then lastly, we are seeing more and more institutions providing open houses. So whether you are attending an open house as an applicant or as a prospect, again, these kind of things will definitely help you become more of a standout as we dive into the actual review process. Thank you.
Hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Darshana Patel, and I am an alumna from Occidental College. And over the last several years, I have been working as an Oxy admissions volunteer, attending college fairs in person, as well as conducting interviews. And I'm here today to talk to you about another common myth, which is that private colleges and universities don't have a lot of diversity. And that may have been true several decades ago, but many private colleges have placed a focus on diversity, equity, and inclusion in recent years and developed intentional programs to meet their goals. You can see from the graph on the right side of this slide that private and public universities have both seen an equal increase in diversity over the last several years. This study that I borrowed from was published in 2017, so the situation is even better today. And we all know that socializing and interacting with people of different backgrounds, their ethnicities, identities, and abilities has a positive personal and academic influence on our students. Benefits include improved academic development, increased cultural awareness, and satisfaction with the college experience. So all of these things could make student diversity on campus a priority. It could be one of your criteria in selecting which college or university you want to spend 4 years of your life at. So what I recommend is you just have to be intentional in the types of questions you ask regarding your higher education options. For example, we could look at what factors contribute to diversity on campus. The primary thing you could look at is the mission and vision. Does the mission and vision of the college or university you're looking at include something reflecting diversity or inclusion? For example, My alma mater, Oxy, highlights a diverse student population as essential in their mission. The mission of Occidental College is to provide a gifted and diverse group of students with a total educational experience of the highest quality, one that prepares them for leadership in an increasingly complex and interdependent pluralistic world. So you want to look at those mission and vision statements, but then also test that with seeing, do they have the outcomes that back that up? So look at their mission and vision. Look at the campus setting. If diversity is a priority for you, you can see whether if the campus is in an urban or a rural setting. What is the community diversity where the college is situated? Those factors can also have an impact on student diversity. Look at the financial aid package. I know Chandra did go into detail on this, but if you look at the financial aid, the diversity of financial aid package options that a college or university offers, you can see if there's, again, intentionality in offering admissions to a diverse population really exists. I know I got into Oxy on every single one of the options she put out there: merit-based, need-based, and work study. So if a college is really seeking out that diversity, they'll make it possible for them to afford to be there. Another important factor is looking at faculty and staff diversity. And I know this tends to be a lagging indicator with as compared to our student populations on campuses, but seeing programs or majors, minors that look at specific diversity inclusion programs, you'll be able to pick up on whether the faculty match or have expertise in those areas. So look at the staff and faculty diversity, as well as the minors and majors offered, course selections, and whether perhaps there's even a study abroad option. That's another good way to see, do they have foreign students, international students on campus? And do you have the opportunity to go study abroad? So those are some factors that you could consider that would contribute to diversity. Another thing you can consider is, what are the outcomes? So, the proof is in the pudding, so they say. So look at the actual diversity of the student populations. Those statistics are available. And when we say diversity, we don't just mean ethnicity. Look at gender, look at gender identity, look at ability, socioeconomic status. All of these things will contribute to a more globally prepared experience. You'll be able to have a better work experience in the future, or have options and better networking opportunities as you go forward. Look at the graduation rates. Is there disparity between graduation rates of different populations on the campus? This is something you can look at if you dig deeper into the statistics. Do certain groups graduate at a higher rate than others? If that's true, then that's something you might want to consider when you're choosing your private university or college. Another thing that I would like to recommend is look at alumni participation. Are the alumni equally happy with their college experience? If they are, you'll see a higher rate of participation, whether it's through donations, whether it's through coming back to participate in reunions, or even their alumni networks. How robust is their alumni network? That's another thing that you could really look at if you want to see whether the mission aligns with their outcomes. And the last one is community engagement. Colleges and universities partner with a lot of different groups in their communities. It could be local, or it could be, across the nation, or even internationally. So what you want to look at is what types of partners or people that institutions they may collaborate with. Those things can all give you an idea of whether they're serious about their diversity, equity, and inclusion missions. Another resource I have found useful over the years is niche.com. It's full of a lot of good information. It's easy for a student or a family to navigate, to look through. And what you can see is, out of the top 100 most diverse schools in America, 19 of them are in California. And out of those 19, 16 of them are private. So let's debunk this myth and get out there and let people know that private colleges and universities do actually have significant amount of diversity. So that's what I have to share today on diversity. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Darsh. That was awesome. Thank you for that research that you presented. So I'm going to talk about size. How big, how small are private colleges and universities? And I think there's a big myth out there that private colleges are very small. They're tiny. They may be just the same size as my high school. And so why would I just want to go to a school that's just the same size as high school and deal with everything I've been dealing with at that point. That's not true. Many private colleges and universities are actually pretty large, but it's all dependent on what your definition of small is. If you're thinking of college as a large public university that has 20,000, 30,000 students, then yeah, maybe a school of maybe 4,000 students is small to you. But most private colleges and universities are small to medium size, meaning anywhere from 3 to 5,000. There are definitely colleges that are private that are in the hundreds, that are more very small, community oriented, that are very mission focused. But that is not a bad thing. And that's a myth that needs to be broken. So the real question you need to be asking about size is, what is the environment that is going to be most important and right for you? Where are you going to thrive, and where are you going to thrive and grow as an individual on a college campus? So think about your learning environment. Do you want to be in an environment where when you're on campus sitting in the quad or on the lawn, do you want to see faces that you recognize and have that campus community feel that you can feel comfortable and say hi to somebody and feel good and warm, those warm fuzzies you get when you see your buddy walking down the hallway? Or do you want to be anonymous? Do you want to be one of many students of many faces where you don't know anybody, and that is what fits for you? So that's something to consider. Even private schools that are medium size, say like 5,000, for example, great thing about that is you're going to see people that you know, but you're also going to be seeing a lot of faces you don't know and meeting new people all of the time. So keep that in mind. And then the classroom is also going to be a really key part, because you're going to college to learn. And do you learn well in a small classroom environment, similar to high school, where you get to raise your hand and participate, where your teachers and professors get to know you by face and by name? Or do you prefer to be in a lecture hall? Do you prefer to be in one of many, say 200 students, and just be a face in the crowd? And that's okay as well. There's no right or wrong way. It just needs to be what is right for you on that classroom size. Similar to campus life, private schools have a lot of great activities and clubs and organizations to get involved with. There's a plethora. There's not just going to be a small private school that's going to only have 5 clubs and they're all things I don't want to do. That's not true. Most private schools have hundreds of clubs and organizations for you to get involved with from the very moment you step on a campus. And every student that I know that goes to private schools is very engaged in their campus community. Residential experience is also going to be a really critical part, because in the residence halls is where you're going to meet your probably closest friends. After that, you'll probably meet your next closest friends through clubs, organizations, and then the classroom. But that residential experience is really key. And so do you have small village style apartments and dorms that you get to know and build that community? Or are you going to be at a very large school where it's very tall towers and it's, again, you may not really know anybody in your area? Not to say that's bad. There's just different styles and preferences. So these are the things you need to be looking at when you're also visiting schools on your college search. And then lastly, with athletics and extracurriculars, a lot of private schools are actually D1 as well. You may think of what you're watching on ESPN, the big football schools. Yeah, those are a lot of the big publics, and that's something that they offer, and those are big game days. Private colleges and universities also have big game days. They have big school rivalries between other private colleges and universities. Oftentimes they are also televised on ESPN. So don't think that just because it's not a large Big Ten school that there's not going to be that athletic school spirit experience. And so do you really want to be that big fish in a little pond? Or maybe you want to be a little fish in a big pond? No right or wrong answer. It's just what's going to be good for you and what your impact will be. So then also thinking about size is, oh my gosh, if I go to a small school, it's going to be very limited academic choices. The research opportunities are going to be very minuscule, and I'm just going to waste my time. Okay, that's a myth. Let's go into Mythbusters here. There are actually going to be so many more opportunities for you to get involved with academic research and academic choices in terms of majors, minors, and pre-professional studies. Number one is that most private colleges and universities have a core element of classes that you're going to take, which are part of a liberal arts, well-rounded education. The benefit of that is that employers and graduate schools, think of medical schools, think of professional schools like law, they are very much interested in students who have a core curriculum, who have liberal arts backgrounds, because you provide a different perspective when you're going on to a college, a career, or advanced studies. So keep that in mind. You're not just going to study one major. You could have a plethora of options, which is also extremely helpful for the most common major of high school students, which is undecided. So you get that opportunity at private schools to explore what is your interest. Maybe I have 3 or 4 things I'm thinking about. You take those classes, you really find out what your passion is, and you have that opportunity to then select your major and still graduate in 4 years. So just because the school has 200 majors, that's great, but does it have the 1 or 2 majors that you are actually most interested in? A school that has 40 majors versus 200, doesn't matter. Go for what you want to study. Professors want you to get involved. They want you to get involved with internships, with their research programs. Oftentimes you're going to be able to get published under your professors because of that small classroom environment. So you're not necessarily competing with 500 other students in your large lecture hall class to get that 1 or 2 positions to work under your professor directly. At a large private or public school, you are going to have a lot of competition to get that experience directly with your professor. Private schools, those opportunities are endless. So think about foundational learning. What matters most to get that breadth of knowledge? That's undergrad. And when you want to go to specialize in law, in medicine, in dentistry, and something more specific in engineering, for example, that's when you go more specifically in the graduate study. So let's continue on and see what we got next.
So to kind of wrap up this conversation, I know we could probably spend another 45 minutes debunking more misconceptions, but another primary one that we often hear that it's difficult to obtain a job, to be employable upon graduation from a private institution because companies or community-based organizations don't know much about about my private school. But I found this very interesting stat that I would like to share with you this evening. 9% of Fortune 500 CEOs have graduated from liberal art institutions. 23% of US educated have become Nobel laureates. 27% of US presidents are alumnus of private institutions, and 14% of tenured Harvard law professors. By far, one of the most difficult achievements to obtain in the world of academia have been achieved by members of alumni organizations from private institutions. So it is, in fact, a reality that alumnus from private institutions are very, very much employable. And again, to kind of just reiterate one of Jim's last slides, a lot of the experiences that students are exposed to at these small private institutions oftentimes is what leads them to become employable. The fact that, that they're being drilled day in and day out on, writing, on research, on communication skills. These are skills that are pretty much transferable to almost any sort of field you can think of, whether you're going into law, into business, into education. Of course, you're going to be expected to communicate well, to write well, to think well. And again, these are the type of elements that oftentimes are pretty much a big part of the overall academic experience at private institutions. I know that we're cutting it very close. So again, we would love to continue talking more and more about these type of misconceptions. But I think, if I'm not mistaken, Chandra, at this moment, we can open it up to questions.
Thank you. So yes, but before we do that, we definitely want to open it up to give you guys opportunities. But real quick, if we kind of touched on it a little bit, but here is all of our contact information. And if you guys haven't figured it out by now, we all represent private colleges here in the state of California. And just to kind of, give you a little bit of intro, maybe 30-second blurb about each institution. Our contact information is right here. Again, my name is Chandra Bird. I am the Assistant Director of Admissions for University of the Pacific. I am responsible for all of Southern California. So any student that is interested in any program we have to offer, they would contact me directly. University of Pacific is actually the first and the oldest university in the state of California. Our mission is to provide a superior student-centered learning experience, integrating liberal arts and professional education and preparing individuals for lasting achievement and responsible leadership in their careers and communities. So again, I'd like if my peers would just kind of do the same thing real quick, and then we can definitely open it up for some specific questions that you guys may have. So Darshana, why don't you go next, and then we'll take Jim and then Osmo.
Sure. Occidental College is a small liberal arts college nestled in the suburbs of Eagle Rock in Los Angeles. It's got this wonderful combination of having that small, very safe college feel, but in a very urban setting. There are all kinds of programs at Oxy, including study abroad programs, Oxy in the UN, summer research programs for the science majors, summer theater programs. It really has a diverse array of offerings for a very diverse student population. I really recommend you take a look at it. And if you have any questions, I'll put my email in the chat and feel free to reach out to me. Thank you.
Jim, thanks, Darshana. Jim, if you could go next.
Gosh, yeah, thanks, Chandra. And again, I'm Jim with the University of San Diego, which is just down the street from you on the I-15, about 20, 30 minutes, depending on where you are up there. So the University of San Diego, if you were not familiar, we are a medium-sized, private, contemporary Catholic university, just nestled in between SeaWorld and downtown, overlooking Mission Bay. We, as a small school, to medium-sized school, have about 5,000 undergraduate students. We are a residential campus community that is focused on the liberal arts. Over 40 majors and minors and pre-professional programs are available. Our student body comes from all over the country. In fact, about 50% of our students come from outside of California, and about 8 to 9% are international as well. So as a residential campus community, you have a great opportunity to meet, interact, and live and grow with students that you definitely won't know from outside of the state. And that's going to add to your wonderful perspective of college life.
Awesome. Thank you, Jim. And last but not least, Osmo.
Thank you, Chandra. So again, my name is Osmo Fuentes, Director of Admissions for Whittier College. Whittier College is a residential liberal arts institution located in the city of Whittier. Whittier is located right in between Los Angeles and Orange County, so sort of like in the heart of Southern California, not too far away from our good friend Darshana over at Eagle Rock and at Occidental College. We are a small institution with about 1,700 students. Our average class size is about 19, with an overall student faculty ratio of 13:1. Curriculum is made up of about 35 different academic majors, close to some 45 different academic minors. About 90% of our students are qualifying for merit-based and financial aid-based assistance. We are a common application school. We don't have an application fee. We are on a rolling basis when it comes to the admission funnel, but we do have 2 application deadlines, November 15th for early action, and then February 1 for regular decision. And we are also a test optional institution. Thank you.
Thank you. So with that, I will go ahead and open it up for any last minute questions. Feel free to use the chat, or if I believe it's allowed, you can unmute yourself and ask a question. Emily, is that okay? Hopefully. Okay, good. So we have a few minutes for
Chandra,
questions.
if I could jump in, I do see a question about, in general, are small privates moving towards a no SAT, no ACT policy, like what our larger universities are doing?
Thank you for catching that. You go, anybody can take it.
I think that, the harsh reality that we all experienced with COVID kind of accelerated sort of what was becoming a trend about more and more institutions becoming test optional. That, my institution, Whittier College, has been test optional for several years, but because of COVID, obviously not that many students were in areas were being offered. So we did see, many institutions go test optional. Some schools are slowly reversing their policy back, and reinforcing or requiring the test, I should say, but I do feel that we did learn a valuable lesson that there are other metrics beyond standardized tests to go and determine one's caliber and one's academic preparation. So I personally wouldn't be surprised if in the next 3 to 5 years, we do see another wave of institutions, private and public, that will be going test optional.
Thank you. We have another question. Looks like, what is range of net cost to attend and graduate in 4 years?
Loaded question, because it just depends on the university. It depends on your expected family contribution, what you're going to get from the FAFSA institutional aid. Every private school, even public school, has different institutional aid that's going to be available on top of what you're going to get from federal money. So you really just need to investigate and have that conversation with each individual college.
Yeah, and I would add that you can look at, like Oxy says in their statistics that 100% of demonstrated need is met if you get in admissions. And I think a lot of the privates do directly manage and help support with demonstrated need. And a lot of private universities, we have a statistic at Oxy, I think it's over 75% of students have some kind of financial aid in their package. So that's also a very common thing for a lot of private colleges and universities. Very few students pay the sticker price. You know, what you see is tuition, room, board, and fees. So you can investigate that. Again, I would say, look at some of the sites. US News, I believe, has some good data on that, as well as niche.com. You can also go to the sites directly and talk to your admissions counselors, the admissions support team there. They'll tell you what their universities are at right now.
Thank you, Darshana. It looks like we have one more question. I don't know, this might be the last one we're able to take, but it is a good question. When a school is test optional, how do the submitted test scores factor into the decision? Honestly, it's kind of back to the other question that we were just faced with. It is going to vary school to school. So it's not uniform, it's not the same. But I can tell you that we here at University of the Pacific, we are test optional for current class of seniors. However, test scores, for us, I can say it's not going to prevent you from being accepted into the university. That's the one thing I can say. However, there are some benefits. And again, you're going to have to connect with the individual schools because this is going to vary, but it can definitely impact with possibly merit scholarships, other benefits like that. So if you are able to take your standardized test, or you have them and you're able to submit them, for the most part, if it's a test optional school, it's not going to negatively impact you. But again, this is something that it is going to look different from school to school. So you really need to connect with your admissions department at the schools that you're interested in and ask them directly.
And I would really stress, don't feel shy to do that. That's what they're there for.
You know, and Osmo touched on it, or Shauna has touched on it. I will reiterate it. It is very important for you to connect with the schools that you are seriously, that are in your top 5 list. You should be building a relationship, if you have not already started this, with your admissions professional. And if you do not know, who the person is specifically, trust me, you can find the admissions office contact information on any school's website. Reach out to the admissions office and they're going to connect you with the individual that you would need to talk to. This is where you ask these questions about scholarships, making sure you're positioning yourself as the strongest possible applicant you could be, getting more details about the school itself, the culture, the program. That is your main point of contact through this. And it does impact you positively when we can go back and we see those interactions that we've had with you, because it does show your seriousness and your commitment, getting to know about that university that you're looking to apply to. So with that, I see Coach just made himself seen again.
If we can do one more question, I see a question about how accurate are the net price calculators for the specific institutions?
I can say that, net price calculators are going to be about maybe 99.999% accurate. It's not 100% accurate because obviously a lot of the information that families and students are going to be submitting are estimates, but for the most part, net price calculators are heavily monitored by the Office of Admissions. Oftentimes, without getting too technical, these are one of the elements that get audited by the Department of Education. So for that particular reason, I can fairly say that most offices of financial aid, if not all of them, will monitor the accuracy of the net price calculators. And again, just to reiterate, it's only 99.99% accurate because a lot of the information that you're going to be submitting, income and taxes and all that kind of stuff, will most likely be just estimates.
Thank you. So with that being said, at this point, I can definitely thank you guys all for joining us tonight, and we can turn it over to either Coach Jamal or Ms. Stevenson.
Awesome. Emily, do you want to have any parting messages? I want to thank all of you guys, Darshana, Rosmo, Jim, Chandra. I want to thank you guys for being here and being great hosts, great moderators, and providing our students and families with great information.
Yes, thank you so much, you guys. I was especially impressed. Planning an event like this is pretty stressful. And Chandra, when I saw your email go out and you were just taking the lead and getting everyone together, it's such a huge sigh of relief to just see you guys like just taking the reins and running with it, and adding Darsh and then adding Osmo and Jim and anyway, it was just perfect, and it just melted my heart, and it just made all of this worth it and much easier. So thank you.
All right, and for those that are remaining, we're going to end up, I'm going to close the meeting, but just make sure to check back in a couple of days. The links, you can use the same links. We will have these recorded and uploaded. So thank you for coming and have a great night. Hopefully everybody's already home. If not, get home safe.